After wearing the Garmin Venu X1 every day for the last month, I have some thoughts. In fact, there are 5 things that I love about this watch and 5 things that, well, I don't love so much, and that is what we're talking about in today's video. If you're considering buying the X1 for golf or otherwise, keep watching. Today's video is for you. Now, as someone who reviews over 100 golf products a year, as you might imagine, most of those don't make it into my daily rotation. I'll go out, I'll use it a couple times, I'll do the review, and then in many cases, I kind of forget about it. So the fact that this watch has worked itself into my daily life, and honestly, is going to be here for a while, that should tell you something about how much I like it. So to kick things off, let's start with the obvious. This is the first thing I love, and that is that the screen is amazing. This is a 2-inch AMOLED screen, and it looks phenomenal. So before this, for the previous 6 to 9 months or however long it's been out, I've been using the Fenix 8, which I love. But the screen on this, because it is square-shaped, everything just kind of fits better. The screen also feels brighter, it's easier to navigate, it's easier to see. And so the main watch face that the Venu X1 comes with is my favorite Garmin watch face of all time. And honestly, it couldn't be replicated with a traditional round watch. So honestly, I think that's the biggest thing the Venu X1 has going for it. Using the screen is just a joy. It looks good, it's fast, it's responsive, and more importantly than all of that, it's easier to see and interact with your data. But this also leads us to the first thing I don't like about the Venu X1 is that honestly, it kind of looks like a bootleg Apple Watch. Garmin has made square watches before in the past, but this is the first kind of modern one that uses an AMOLED screen. And don't get me wrong, like I said, the screen is the best part about it. But honestly, because of that, it now just kind of looks like an Apple Watch wannabe. The way my wife described it, she's like, you know those like watches you give like your 9-year-old kid when you don't want to give them a phone? She's like, it kind of looks like that. And she's kind of not wrong. Obviously, I've been willing to look past this for the functionality, for the comfort, for all sorts of reasons. And I don't know how you would do a square watch any different without it being a bootleg Apple Watch, but that just kind of is where we are with it. Or at least that's my opinion. All right, second thing I love about the Venu X1 is the fact that I have not missed any features of this watch from the Fenix 8. So most of the features from the more expensive Fenix 8 have been carried over here. There are a couple notable differences. One, this doesn't have multi-band GPS. So if you do a lot of activities that are like in a city with big skyscrapers, that might be a problem for you. There's also no EKG reader on here, which a lot of people have pointed out at this price point, $799, feels like something you would want to be included. But here's the thing. For me personally, I never turn on multiband GPS with the Fenix just for battery life reasons. And 2, I've never once used the EKG. So I don't really miss those features. So to get every other health and fitness feature from that watch in something that is less bulky, a little more under the radar, and has a bigger, brighter screen, I mean, that's been a pretty good trade-off for me. Honestly, I expected to miss the Fenix 8 more. I expected to go back to the Fenix 8, but despite a few drawbacks that we'll talk about this in a second, I really haven't missed the Fenix, which surprised me. I wasn't expecting that to happen. The second thing I don't like about this is the battery life. And that can be a little misleading because let's be clear, the battery life on this, especially compared to say an Apple Watch, is excellent. Like if I'm not doing a whole lot of physical activity, if I'm not playing rounds of golf or I'm not working out, I'm not using the GPS, this will last for days. And you can definitely customize some of the settings to optimize and give you more battery life. But when you look at the other Garmin watches I've been using recently, like the Fenix 8, like I would go a week at a time, having multiple activities a day, runs, walks, workouts, golf, and honestly, it didn't skip a beat. Like you just really don't have to charge the watch that often, like once or twice a week, even if you're being really active, and I love that. It's one of the biggest issues I had with the Apple Watch is the fact I just didn't like the fact that I felt like I had to charge it every single day. I don't feel like I did have to charge it every single day. And so where you feel the drawback with this is if you are being really active. So if you go play a round of golf and then you work out the next day and you're using it for sleep tracking, in my experience, you're gonna get maybe 3 days of battery life with this. Still really good, might get to 4 days. And again, if you're not being super active, if you're just using the GPS occasionally, it's gonna last you even longer than that. But compared to the Fenix, I would say the battery life feels like it lasts about 2/3 as long. So that's still great, but not as great. Hey, real quick, sorry to interrupt. If you do decide to go out and buy the Venu X1 or any other Garmin golf watch for that matter, I highly recommend you do it through playbetter.com. I've had a wonderful experience with them. They've got great customer service. They've got pretty much every Garmin golf watch you could want, and they've got free 30-day returns. They did not sponsor this video in any way. They weren't even the ones that sent me this watch. I just had a really good experience buying through them for these types of products, and I think you will too. All right, back to the video. All right, third thing about the X1 I love is I've really enjoyed golfing with it. One of the things is, don't get me wrong, the Fenix 8, the S70, those are great watches, but they're almost twice as thick as this. This is only 8 millimeters thick. And so it just kind of disappears on your hand. And especially when it comes to golf, you don't really want to think about what's on your wrist. And so I found golfing in it to be a joy. The touchscreen, for the most part, when you're on the course, is really responsive. The maps look great. I've had no issues with GPS accuracy. I've had no issues with it prompting me to keep score at the beginning of every tee box. I've had no connectivity issues when it comes to connecting sensors or the Z30 rangefinder. All of that works flawlessly. The only downside I've had to the golf experience, and this is something I mentioned in my full review, is that I don't like the way you scroll through hazards. It seems like on the edges and the corners of the touchscreen, it gets slightly less responsive. And so when you're playing golf, if you want to get to the hazard view, you have to click a button that's in the corner, and sometimes it doesn't always register right away. Outside of that, I've loved playing golf with this. All right, third thing I don't like, and this kind of goes hand in hand with what I just said, is it doesn't seem super responsive when it gets wet. So when I used an Apple Watch, I used to swim laps with an Apple Watch all the time, and I had no issues still scrolling through using the touchscreen even when the watch was wet. This doesn't respond quite as well. So if you're someone who wears your watch in your shower, or you go swimming, or if you're just frequently in a place where your watch is wet, it's not terrible, but it isn't as responsive as I would like it to be. All right, fourth thing I love about this watch is the included nylon strap. I know we've kind of touched on the form factor, the comfort, but this really is the most comfortable smartwatch I have ever worn. And a big part of that is because of the comfort of the strap. When you put it on, you can always get it exactly as tight as you want. And sometimes I've found with the Fenix 8 or the S70, it might be just a little bit too loose, or it might be just a little bit too tight. But because of the way this strap was designed, you can always get it to be exactly perfect, the exact tightness that you want. And I didn't realize how much I was going to like that until I started using it. All right, fourth thing that I don't like, that's kind of a tie into what we were just talking about, is I've had some heart rate sensor issues. So specifically, and I've had this with every Garmin watch I have used, it's specifically on treadmill, running, or walking workouts. And what I will find is often for the first 3 to 10 minutes, it won't properly register my heart rate. It'll get up to like 125 beats per minute. And even if I'm running like at pretty full speed where I know it should be like 150, 160, 170, it'll just kind of chill at like 125, 130. And then after like 7 minutes, it might jump up to 170. It doesn't seem like that big of an issue, but a lot of times what I might do is say, okay, I'm gonna go do a mile sprint on a treadmill before my workout. And in my Garmin Connect data, I wanna get credit for that workout. I want it to know that I was sprinting. I want it to know that I got my heart rate up. So sometimes what'll happen is I'll run that mile and it'll say that I was at 125 beats per minute for all but the last like 30 seconds. And I know that that data is inaccurate. And so the reason I said that kind of tied into my last point is with the Fenix 8, where I've also had this issue, I will often like make it tighter or make it looser or adjust it to try and make sure it's in the right spot. And none of that really seems to solve the problem with any consistency. And so while it hasn't happened on every running activity, I will say about 50% of the time it is cropped up with this. And it isn't a bigger deal if you're going for like a 3, 4, 5 mile run if it just misses the first like 4 minutes. But if you're sprinting and running at a 7.5 minute pace and it doesn't get that heart rate data for the first 6 minutes, then that data is inaccurate and it gets a little frustrating. Fifth thing I love about the Venu X1, and this is kind of Garmin as a whole, but I love the Garmin ecosystem. They make me want to go work out. They make me want to track my data. They make me want to improve. They make me want to take actions each and every day that are going to make me a healthier, more active, just better person. And I just don't think I was expecting that when I made the shift a few years ago to being fully Garmin versus being fully Apple. It's like I like that data so much that it's like even when I'm wearing a mechanical watch, I will stick this in my pocket just so that I can track my steps for the day, which sounds kind of silly, but it's also kind of point in case as to how much Garmin has made me want to be more active. And this watch has had the same effect as all those other watches previously, and it's just made me excited to be in the Garmin ecosystem. If anyone from Garmin is watching this, please make a non-watch wearable like a ring or even a Whoop band, something without a screen, so that when I am wearing a mechanical watch, I can still track all my data. That would be great. I feel like that would sell really well. I don't want it from another brand. This is why I'm all in on the Garmin ecosystem. I want to get that data into Garmin Connect, even if I'm not wearing a watch. Does that seem like so much to ask? No, right? And finally, the last thing that I don't love about this is the fact it only has 2 buttons. I've gotten used to the traditional Garmin 5-button setup, and I love it. While I don't usually like using the touchscreens on some of those other watches because I prefer the preciseness of the physical buttons, I will say this touchscreen overall has been much more enjoyable to use than I expected it to be. I've gotten used to it, but I do wish it had a couple more buttons, specifically because I miss having multiple shortcuts. Being able to easily create shortcuts to allow me to access the things that I do most frequently is one of my favorite parts about the Fenix series of watches. Getting to things like Spotify, or starting a stopwatch, or starting a timer, or getting my flashlight. And with this watch, you can do shortcuts. There's 3. Right now, it brings up the settings menu. It brings up the flashlight, which, by the way, I should have put that as one of the 5 things I love. Having a flashlight in the watch is excellent. It's one of those things you're like, that's kind of weird, until you realize you will use it all the time, and it's great. And then the third shortcut is you have to hit both of these at the same time, and the way it's designed, that's kind of tricky to do. So I just wish there were more buttons for more shortcuts. So despite this being a slightly ramblier video than I was intending for it to be, the bottom line is, I've loved this watch. I'm gonna be wearing it for a long time to come. I think that it is a great balance of all of the different Garmin watches. You're getting almost all of the golf features of their Approach series watches. You're getting almost all of the fitness features of the Fenix series watches. You have a better screen and a more comfortable watch. And despite being $799, which objectively is a lot for a smartwatch, for everything that you get for it, I actually feel like compared to a lot of the other products out there, it's a pretty good value. So take that for what it's worth. If you have questions about my experience with the Venu X1, drop a comment. I'm happy to do my best to answer every single one to help you figure out if this is the right watch for you. With that, my name's Sean Ogle. I'm the founder of this thing here, Breaking 80, where we talk about cool golf courses and cool golf products. If you got some value out of this, maybe subscribe, thumbs up, do all of the things. And if you're still not sure which GPS golf watch is right for you, go take our 30-second quiz. You're gonna answer a few questions around what you're looking for, and I'm gonna give you my best recommendation on the watch that I think is the best fit for your needs. I hope you have an excellent day, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace.